Good morning. Good morning. We have a lot of activities today here on the campus and also out off campus. I want to first invite the president of Chulalongkorn University, Dr. Pirom, to give us to provide some opening remarks.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you and welcome to IC's public forum today on a very topical subject. Thai politics is beset with turmoil and confrontation again. I think it is fair to say that the current round of confrontation came with the controversial blanket amnesty bill that has galvanized many people to protest in the street to oppose it. Now the protests are continuing, and today we have a crucial judicial decision that may add to a political tension and turmoil. I wish we could do away and get over this period in Thai politics, where the Thai people are so divided and polarized. And I will look forward to the times when peace and reconciliation can be achieved, so that we can move ahead and move on as a nation. In the meantime, many of us want to understand what is happening in Thai politics, especially after the amnesty bill and the Preah Vihear temple decision by the International Court of Justice. Where does Thai politics stand for? What are the determinants, outcomes, and prospects? These are some of the issues and questions we will address in this forum. To do so, the Institute of Security and International Studies at the Faculty of Political Science has lined up a balanced set of speakers to help us understand. I'm pleased that the turnout is very strong here, because it means we are doing a good job in public service, providing a platform for open discussion and debate about issues that dominate our life and our times, serving the public by enriching minds, informing people, and bridging Thailand's political divisions as much as possible is what we seek to do here at Chulalongkorn University. I wish to thank the distinguished speakers, Korn Chatikavanij, Dr. Jarupan Kuldiloke, Dr. Panitan, Wattanayagorn, Dr. Puangthong, Pawakapan, both from the political parties and from our Faculty of Political Science. And I thank all of you for joining this forum. I apologize for not being here able to stay and listen to what will be very interesting comments, and I have to convene a meeting of the Dean in a few minutes. But I will look forward to a summary by ISIS. Thank you very much.
We have 4 speakers. And as you can see from the lineup, we have tried to provide balance, always try to provide balance. So when we had this idea, we invited Kun Noppadon Patama from the ruling party Pheu Thai side, the government side, and we invited Korn Chatikavanij, former finance minister and a deputy leader of the Democrat Party. And we have a couple of academics, Jan Puangthong and Panitan. Yesterday, Kun Noppadon has cancelled or has asked not to be here. He has to be in meetings at the party and so on. So it's a big day for everyone. So I said, look, it's okay, but you better send someone else. Otherwise, you won't be represented. So I want to thank Korn for being a bit very gracious with his time. He's a former minister, and we had a former minister lined up, but he pulled out beyond our control. In his place, however, we have Dr. Jarupan Kuldiloke, an MP from Pheu Thai. So we will go in this order. Korn will speak first. The subject, of course, is very wide and open. is about Thai politics. In view of the amnesty bill that has been terminated, in view of the ICJ's decision, International Court of Justice decision on Preah Vihear Temple, the clarification from 1962, and in view of all the rest. The speakers have a free rein to say whatever they like in reflection, in view of what we're seeing in Thai politics. So first, I'll ask Korn.
Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I won't speak for long, simply because there's so much ground to cover, given all that's happening around us in Thai politics. And I'll say a whole load more when it comes to the opportunity we'll have to answer questions and discuss your concerns. But first of all, Dr. Thitinan introduced me somewhat inaccurately as the deputy leader of the Democrat Party. I was, but I resigned from that position on the 31st of October so that I could properly join the protests against the amnesty law. So I'm now just an MP, an ex-deputy leader of the party. I think we will look back to the current and ongoing divisiveness in Thai politics in a few years. And I guess events over the next several weeks, several months, hopefully, as Professor Pirom said, not the next several years, will decide exactly how it is that we look back to this current period. I think given the way things are going, it's either going to be a decisive period which will determine whether we give up on liberal democracy, move towards autocracy, and move towards so-called majoritarianism, or the rule of the majority, or this period will actually be defined as a period when liberal democracy and the voice of the people genuinely wins over the rule of the majority in the House of Parliament. The jury is still out as to how this will all turn out. The positive view of looking at the past couple of weeks is that the Thai people have become more politically aware, more politically involved, more willing to be politically involved. And at the end of the day, even with the absolute majority in the House, politicians cannot ignore the voice or the opinion of the people. When we started out, I guess almost over a year ago, in our campaign against the proposed amnesty law, we weren't, to be honest with you, quite certain how much involved the general public will eventually choose to be in joining our protests against this law. But we spent a lot of time providing information and educating people as to the implications of this particular law. And when the first hearing was read in Parliament about 3 months ago, we basically said that it would lead to eventual amendments of the law that would bear all in terms of what the true objectives of Pheu Thai and the man behind Pheu Thai, Thaksin, would be in proposing this law in the first place. And that was that the law on the first reading appeared to have been addressed only to the general public who were participating in the political protests over the past several years. But that the true objective of Thaksin and Pheu Thai was always going to be centered around providing amnesty for Thaksin, not just for political breaches, but also breaches against laws, particularly pertaining to corruption. The public at first didn't believe us. I guess they wanted to give Pheu Thai the benefit of the doubt. But we were sure that time would reveal the true objective of what this whole process was about. And unfortunately, we weren't disappointed. The amendment was proposed, which clearly was directed at Thaksin, and even to people who were defenders of Thaksin, including many so-called progressive red shirts. It was an amendment. The amendment and the true meaning of the amendment wasn't something that needed to have been debated. It was crystal clear who it was directed at and what the implication of the amendment would be. And that's when we were able to win over mass popular support in our effort to fight this amnesty bill. And the rest is, as I say, history. You saw the kind of protests that took place across all segments of society in a way that Thailand has never seen, really. Thinking back 30, 40 years, all mass protests have ended in bloodshed. Well, this one hasn't quite properly ended yet, but the first chapter of it did on the 11th of November, when the upper house voted against the bill unanimously, 141-0. And that vote would not have taken place without the clear show of force by the Thai general public in a uniquely peaceful way. It was loud, but it was peaceful. And I think as a participant throughout those dozen days, I have to say it in many ways was my best moment in politics, and I've been in politics now for almost 10 years, because it was quite pure in terms of the way people came together, the way they expressed themselves, their goals and objectives, and this the sort of simultaneous way in that people demonstrated their feelings about an important political issue, and it gave me a lot of hope in terms of what we could hope to achieve in developing our political systems and the democratic systems in particular in the country, and gives me and a lot of people hope that we have a foundation upon which we could build a truly liberal and participatory democratic process in this country. That being said, the battle still goes on. My voice is a bit hoarse because at just past 3 in the morning last night, we had to file a petition against the 2 trillion baht borrowing law proposed by the government. It had to be at 3 in the morning because that was when the final votes took place in the upper house. And according to the Constitution, we're only allowed to file a complaint to the Constitutional Court once the law has been passed by the upper house, thus signaling the end of the role of the law writers, and pass the responsibility to the next step, which is the judiciary. So there's that. There are also the rulings that we're anticipating today, also from the Constitutional Court, and the fact that there are so many issues that lies in the hand of the Constitutional Court is seen as either a weakness by some or as a strength by others of the check and balance process that we have in our political system. A weakness, some will argue, because these issues shouldn't be decided by courts of law, but should be decided by people who are better seen as representatives of the people. A strength seen by others as a proper check and balance that we should have in the system to ensure that those with the majority voice are also forced to adhere to the rule of law. That's essentially the main issue of debate in Thai political scenes this past several months and arguably past several years. And how it all ends up, I guess, should be played out in front of our eyes over the next several days, if not several hours. As I said, there are reasons to be hopeful, but clearly also many reasons to be concerned. Pheu Thai's announcement, for example, yesterday, that they're not willing to accept the ruling of the Constitutional Court is cause for great concern. I wonder how they would feel if the same number of people came out and said they're not willing to accept the opinion of the party that has majority in the House. Is effectively a challenge on the existing political system that we have. And when such a significant challenge is made, it's always a concern as to how, therefore, any disagreements will be played out or settled in civil society. So we'll see. So let me leave things at that for now, and we'll come back to all these issues later. Thank you.
The amnesty bill, as is well known now, it has galvanized a wide coalition, broad-based coalition of critics against the bill, and the bill has been aborted. Now, after the termination of this bill, what is the direction of the protesters now, in the streets? And after today, as a former deputy leader of the Democrat Party, where do you see the party heading?
Okay. Well, first of all, the bill hasn't been killed, in that it's not exactly dead, practically or technically. The fact that it was voted down by the Senate means that nobody can do anything with the bill for 180 days. But immediately after 180 days has passed, any member of the House of Parliament can propose the bill for confirmation in the lower house. So technically speaking, on the 181st day after the 11th of November, the bill can be brought back and confirmed by the majority, which, according to some members of Pheu Thai party, is they have publicly said that's exactly what they intend to do. And that's a reason why the protest is continuing, to maintain pressure on the ruling party, not to think about doing something that I think has been proven beyond doubt to be so clearly against the wishes of the majority of the Thai people. I'm not involved in the protests subsequent to the Senate ruling on the 11th of November. It's kind of confusing. On the 31st of October, I and a few other executive members of the Democrat Party resigned our executive position in order to participate in the protest. Why we did that? To protect the party, because we had no doubt that Pheu Thai would, if they could, use any excuse they have to file a complaint against the party and seek a ruling for dissolution of our party. And there would have been risk of that had I been participating in the protest as an executive member of the party. So that's the precise reason why I resigned. But subsequent to the ruling, a group of our MPs, including, of course, Kun Suthep Tilsaman, went one step further and resigned from their membership of Parliament. I did not do that because I felt that my job would be better served as a member of Parliament, and frankly, we didn't need more than 9 mob leaders, which is effectively what we have now, and my time would be more effectively used elsewhere. So since then, I'm not involved in the decision-making process of the protesters, and in fact, I would say that the Democrat Party, since that day, became even less involved in the protests than they were before. Decisions made by the protesters cannot be seen, and in reality are not decisions that were made by the Democrat Party, are not necessarily supported by the Democrat Party, but clearly, I would be lying if I didn't say that the protesters don't at least receive our full sympathy for what they're trying to achieve. What they are now trying to do is ostensibly to rid Thailand of the so-called Thaksin regime. How you define that? Well, I think we need a separate session for that. But by and large, people who consider themselves to be anti-Thaksin sort of know what it is that they don't like about the so-called Thaksin regime. But by definition, the objective of the protest has obviously become less well defined, and as a result has become more difficult for people to decide whether they should join in or not, as compared to the initial period when the objective was much more clear, and that was a protest against the amnesty bill. This is frustrating. It's been frustrating for me in trying to work out exactly what it is that the end objective of the ongoing protest might be, what it is exactly that they seek to happen. I can only hope that the end result will be, at worst, a resignation of the Prime Minister or a House dissolution, leading to another election. But I can't say for sure that that is the objective of the people who are spearheading or joining the ongoing protest.
Let me proceed to the government side. We always try to promote balance. In the end, we ended up with a slight imbalance. We have a former minister, and we have now an MP. But in fact, they're both MPs, so in a way, that's balance.
But she has a PhD. I only have a bachelor's degree.
Oh, that's imbalance. Well, and overall, I think it's 2 MPs, good balance. And I thank both of them for joining under these circumstances. Dr. Jarupan is a former lecturer. She's a former academic and well known as a politician now with the Pheu Thai party. Thai lawmakers normally are known for truancy. They don't show up a lot, but recently they've been working late at night, like 4 a.m., 3 a.m. I don't know if Dr. Jha was up at 3 a.m. last night, but now I think a lot of people want to know the perspective of the Pheu Thai party, of the government, what happened to this amnesty bill that originally was limited in scope, but it expanded the scope going back to almost a decade, and became a kind of a all-inclusive bill. And then we can also hear, if you have anything to say about the Preah Vihear decision by the ICJ, and the current face-off that we're seeing. I think it's unprecedented that we have this situation where lawmakers do not accept judicial authority. So what are some of the debates and thinking behind the Pheu Thai party and where it stands? Ajahn Cha, Chen Kap.
Thank you, Dr. Panitan, and thank you for Dr. Thitinan, and I would like to thank for inviting me for this moment that amongst friends, and we try very hard to find such a forums, be able to listen each other's. What we have been passed the amnesty bill, and also the phenomenon of Preah Vihear is also the phenomenon that Thai people learn together, and I think this is the moment that we at the same time we have a chance to witness and learn what's going on in our country, in our home together. So actually the amnesty bill is more difficult than the Preah Vihear issue in my personal perspectives. And I think it's the most difficult issues I have been witnessed in my life. The questions about amnesty bill is who will be included to the forgiveness and amnesty. This is the questioning that we've been repeating as a cycle very fast in a short time and a short period, which we have to make the decisions in the time limit. So actually I would like to thank Dr. Noppadon Pathama also allow me to be here among friends, and actually I would like to be here for deep listening, and we actually would like to hear every voice as much as possible, and the duty we have done already, so we will wait and see what is the next step. So my personal view is about hearing and listen deeply. So this morning I hear the exciting moment. Everyone heart beating a lot, and also this is also the cycles that we've been repeating many times already. So I think in my personal view, we cannot change the past, but rather move forward. And so actually I don't want to speak much, but rather asking from friends what is the best resolutions for our home, and also how could we make dialogue among different perspectives and different thoughts. I have written an article 10 years ago about dialogues, and I always thanks to myself in the past written down something that I could use in the future. So also the same as academic life, we note down what we experience, and then we could learn also in the future as well. So try very hard to have a dialogue forum, which we could hear deeply and be above the language that we normally speak. So actually I'm here to hear more. And also the topics today is about Thai politics. And after Amnesty and Preah Vihear, which is I think the most difficult issues that we could imagine what is the determinants, outcome and prospects. So I couldn't determine it by myself, rather hearing from friends and also different perspectives, how various and different language could understand what is the feeling and what is the truth and what is the meaning truthfully from individuals and also from the societies. And we are here, I think, as relatives and friends to witness that Thai people quite tolerate. And also, this is the cycle that repeating, and I feel like I travel back 2 times to the back and then to the past, and then we should witness and written it down, note it down, how we could overcome the situations and how we should cross the conflict and come out and get the outcomes among each others. I think this is the most important steps that we should have dialogue forums and also note it down, report it, and let and people in the next generation to learn what we have been through and how difficult it's been. It been challenged Thai people in this moment. Thank you.
No, I'm sorry, I can't let you get off there. We have to ask you. Perhaps you can share with us what are the the views, feelings of your colleagues in Pheu Thai towards the amnesty bill. Do people regret the bill? Does the party think that it should not have been that version? It should not have been so inclusive and so wide-ranging? And what is the game plan now for the Pheu Thai party? We have seen in the news that the party MPs and I think senators as well, I'm not sure about that, but certainly the party is not accepting the jurisdiction, the authority of the Constitution Court. Perhaps you can share with us some of the views from inside going forward. What are some of the scenarios that you are hearing and planning with your colleagues? Thank you.
On amnesty bill issues, it's been proposed by an MP from legislators sections, which is according to the constitutions and followed the rule of law, considering the constitutions. People been calling for freedom of the people who detain in jails for 3 years, and it shouldn't have the phenomenon that people protest in front of the court for 3 years. So there's been the suffers from the people for 3 years already. Therefore, an MPs and other MP, 40 of them signed after proposal for amnesty bill. And as the representatives in the parliament, among 500 of us, we represent people voiced in the whole country. Then we trust that the committee will include all people who really witness and be the most human resources who know what is going on in Thailand for 10 years. The conflict not being just only this 10 years, but rather than a history longer than that. And Kun Korn mentioned about Thaksin regime, but in my personal perspective, it's longer than that. So we trust that the committees of 19 people already consider at their best who and how long will be the time periods for amnesty. So they have written and given 10 years times, and including everyone, which we hearing from them. And as the one of representatives, we decide to trust to approve the decisions of the committee. Therefore, we have two choices: approve and not. And then therefore, people in the jail would have their freedoms to be back to their families, and also have the basic rights as are others. So that's been explaining what we have done as the best consideration at that moment, and this is very, very difficult. So brought many people on the street, and in my personal view is, again, I still have a chance, I see a chance that people could learn together, and people would witness this situation. How could we use this amnesty bill issues as the case studies for Thai political conflict for 10 years? But I personally think that it's longer than that, and we should have dialogue really on these issues. For example, on the amnesty bill, that would be profitable for everyone, and I think this would bring positive resolutions. And in my personal view, after seeing many people walking on the street protesting amnesty bill, then Pheu Thai party decide to stop and not bringing back amnesty bill again. But on the other hand, we should have dialogue. We should have really the real dialogues, not just hearing or bringing people at the same place and asking questions, but rather having facilitators who provide the comfort zones for everyone there to speak and listen without judgment, and also could bring forward what is inside beyond the language. I think this is the solutions which I have witnessed throughout the world. So today I would like to hear from all of you among friends, how could we learn from others, from the histories, and also find the positive solution together, and how we can document it, these phenomenon as our difficult homework to put it through and also bring forward and pass to our next generation. Thank you. Pheu Thai plans not to bring amnesty bill again to any times So we come back to the solution that we're going to ask for bail to the court again and try at our best. And I would like to ask help from this forum also. How could we have the basic right for those people who detained in jails for 3 years, and how could we have the same standards for people who have basic right to be able to bail and prepare themselves to defend to the court as others, as Thai citizens. Ajahn Thitinan asking about the court decision as well. So
Preah Thai's plans. What are the plans? The decision yesterday to not accept the authority of the court. So after today, what are some of the thinking, feelings of the Preah Thai that you can share with us?
I cannot. Thank you so much for these challenging questions. We still waiting for the resolutions from Preah Thai strategic planning in our party as well. So we're hearing moment by moment and be at the present. So today is quite exciting times, and so we plan to be ready for homeworks, difficult homework day by day now, and the court decisions today, it will be very important because it will be the standard for justice in Thailand, and it will be the constitution as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry to have 2 sets of follow-ups. Now the next speaker is a very good friend of mine, and you'll know that people confuse us all the time, and it's surprising since the very beginning. People come up to me and call me Thitinan, and they'll call him Panitan, but even after, and I tell him now it's insulting to my friend because he's been a government spokesman, he's been a deputy secretary general to the prime minister. He's very senior, it's much more senior than I. So the confusion should have stopped, but it hasn't. It persists. Ajahn Panitan has been with the Faculty of Political Science for 21 years. We came in the same year. We came here. And he has taught security studies, security courses, and he has worked in the government before. So this is more of an academic view from Ajahn Panitan, and in light and in view of all that is happening and has happened, what do you say?
ขอบคุณครับอาจารย์ครับคุณกรณ์ครับจากจารุวรรณอาจารย์พวงทองครับ I'm beginning to believe that some things never change, including the topic that I'm going to say. I think if you are here with me, if you were here with me 12 years ago, you would agree that this is not new. The crisis that we are now facing is not new. 12 years ago, I think that crisis began with the new government. In fact, I left the government last time I served in February 2001. I remember very well leaving the government house thinking that our job is over. And some of my colleagues who served Prime Minister Chuan administration even went to the Hindu shrine on top of the government house and said to the Hindu shrine that his job is over. He's not coming back to the government house. Thailand has a new leader. He seemed to be very young, energetic. People just loved him. And I think for us, we are now finishing up our political reforms, and we need to go back. Upon leaving the government house, I told my colleague that I forgot to say goodbye to the Hindu shrine. But I was hopeful too that I should not come back to serve the government anymore. It was my third time serving at that time in 2001. We left that government house thinking that the three determinant issues, the three determinant factors that we have been working very hard is perhaps moving up to the better level of development. First is check and balance. Of course, it was a government of the people. They like him so much that he won the election in such a way that stunning even experienced political professors or observers. That's the first issue, check and balance. Second, the issue of corruption. And third is the issue of a conflict of interest. I think these are the three key determinants also will break and make the government or the Thai society in the next few weeks to come, depending on how they handle that. But it's not only that. Essentially, of course, I'm talking about the issues of transparency, good governance, rule of law. This is not new to us, but of course, these issues becoming more and more intense over the last 12 years. If you listen to Kun Anand Panyarachun, one of our former prime minister lately, he said this year he's 80 years old. He never seen something like this regarding corruption in his life, in his lifetime. I'm not so sure you should believe him or not, but many people do, thinking that we really have a serious issue about corruption. To me, it's not only three factors, it's more complicated than that. There is another one big factor also. In fact, I would argue that whatever the direction we move in the next few weeks or months, it depending on these 3+1 factor. Of course, check and balance is a very, very critical issue. On the 31st of September, if you woke up with me between 1 and 4 a.m. in the morning, seeing what happened in the parliament, you knew we are in crisis. In fact, I gave my friend a call, woke him up and say, look at that. The big crisis is coming very soon. The parliament is totally out of function. I don't know what happened in the parliament, but I'm not so sure you had a chance to look at what went on between 1 to 4 a.m. That is not a check and balance, in any way you look at it. So that is one of the biggest problems. But corruption, of course, we talk more and more on this. It becomes an old cliche or issue anyway. Some people don't even want to hear about it. Conflict of interest. This issue, particularly today, the Constitutional Court will decide or not these senators voted to extend their term to come back next next year when the election is up. Is it another issue of conflict of interest when they voted to extend their own term? We are very interested to hear on what the court had to say on some of these issues. But on top of that, I think another key determinant is going to be the survival of the political parties or even individual politicians. Kun Thaksin for one, Kun Apisit or Kun Suthe for another. In the last few years, this issue becoming more and more bigger, larger than most people expected. So here we are dealing 12 years gone by the same issues, but in a larger, bigger sense. The stake is bigger, even. And of course, if you look at the last issue about the survival of the political parties or politicians, it's something to do more with, a very strange, feelings attached to some of these leaders. Maybe internet, Facebook, Twitter helped to make them becoming big superstars and celebrities, and people love or hate them so much. They try to, worship him. They try to follow them. They try to even kill them. Throw the blood at them. They try to block them. It's become very intense, very personal. If you read the Thai politics studies in the past, a few decades about cult of personality. You add Facebook, you add Twitter, you add fan club into that, and you can feel the intensity of the fight between these followers and these people. So it's 3+1 determinants on how we are going to come out in the next few weeks, how the government, the opposition, civil society will respond to this. Personally, I'm more optimistic also. I think over the past 12 years, check and balance is coming to the forefront in the new light. I think to the credit of some of the progressive red shirts, they have their stronger voices on these check and balance issues. They want society to be more balanced between conservatives and the poor forces or the liberal forces. They also want to have a more transparency in the system. I think on one hand, you have to give credit to some of them, at least, especially those who advocate non-violence. On the other hand, I think the Democrat is also able to move these issues especially among the new generation in such a way that we didn't really believe that they could. Sorry to say that. But a minute I saw Kun Suthep walk from Samsen to the Democratic Monument, I knew that they have secured their place. They will survive. I'm sure Kun Tharit and some of these people have to think twice, because Kun Suthep is now a mob leader. He has his place to stand. No longer they can really push him the way they did. But more than that, I think Kun Suthep, when he walked to the monument, Democracy Monument, with the followers, I don't think these are the followers of the Democrat alone. I think on that day, or on the days after that, if Kun Suthep told these people, go home, I have completed my mission. I have now said to the government that you cannot really, run me down, push me over the cliff. I don't think the people on the streets will go home. They want something else. They want to have some answers on the check and balance, on the corruption issues, on the conflict of interest. I don't believe for 1 minute that people on the Prajadhipok-Rambhaibarni street will listen to Kun Suthep totally. Of course, with Kun Suthep and 9 others that help organize this event, they have credits too. But this is why I'm optimistic. Win or lose, I think these 3 issues will go on with the new generation. My job is almost complete, actually. My students, no longer we need to teach them about transparency, good governance, rule of law. They know what to do on Prajadhipok-Rambhaibarni with non-violence. I think for me, this is a quite positive thing. But the negative thing is, of course, how to handle this, the personal issue, the survival of individual politicians, or the intensities, the personality conflicts among these, on top of these principal issues. That I don't know, because I'm not involved with these very intense fights. But I know for sure that if violence take place on the street in the next few days, I know what will happen. Series of uncontrollable events will occur, and of course the military will come out. And the rest of the answer I don't need to tell you. I don't think the military can stand watching people crashing on the streets. So I think it's up to the two leaders or the leaders of the 2 opposite forces, which of course almost wanting on the same thing, on the 3 main factors, check and balance, corruption, conflict of interest. Although I must say, Ajahn Jarupan, I would like to hear more on the corruption, counter-corruption from Pheu Thai. Check and balance, I think they do not that bad in their own voices. Conflict of interest, not that bad when they're attacking the conservatives, when they're attacking senior officers, not that bad. Let's hope that they're attacking themselves too. But on corruption, I think if they increase more intensity, I think they could do fine too in the next election. But in terms of personal conflicts. Maybe we need to have Kun Korn, in Thai society. Once you get into that conflict, it's difficult to withdraw. It becomes too personal. So, but the new generation may not think otherwise. So I will leave you with that first, and I will move on to the ICJ just for a few minutes. But again, I think these are the issues that over the past 12 years, we have more and more ways of solving it. I think the system, although weakened, especially very concerned about the parliamentary system, but the people on the streets, they know what at stake. You don't need to tell them. I think they know. I think we have been underestimating political forces in Thai society for quite some time, or from all spectrums. Kun Korn said it himself that he didn't expect a lot of people will follow Democrat lead. I don't expect to hear that from a very seasoned politician like Kun Korn. Sometimes worry me if he miscalculates things. I hope he won't miscalculate things in the next few weeks. But then again, I'm more and more optimistic, and I think if we stay away from violence, I think we could expect the government will call for the election quite soon. I don't think Prime Minister Yingluck's popularity is going to go higher than this, except there is a miracle. In the next 2 years, I think Pheu Thai is looking now for an early election. I think for me, the sooner or the better. But of course, the issue of the big bill, many trillions of baht, investment is going to be also play out very intensely based on those 3 factors also. So let's hope Pheu Thai handle that big money better in the next few months, so they can comfortably going into the early election. And of course, we can expect a weakening Pheu Thai, I could be wrong, a weakening Pheu Thai popularity in certain urban areas, but early indication from the posters. I'm not so sure you can believe the Thai posters, but Kun Abhisit's popularity for the first time surpassed Kun Yingluck, and also popularities among Democrat MPs in the urban areas are up between 15% to 30%. I'm talking not about in Bangkok. I'm talking about North and the Northeast, according to Isan poll, Khotkan poll. Democrat popularity is increased by 15 to 30%. I'm not so sure that you should believe that number. But if numbers are correct, then we could expect a tighter race, for the election in the next few months. That's my thinking on this issue. But on the ICJ, it's very complicated, as you know, and again, not new. And this so-called nightmare for the Thai could maybe, according to many people, ended last week with the new ICJ clarification. But it's not over yet. There is a long road to normalcy or stability on borders. But for many people, this issue finally almost laid down to rest by the ICJ, unless you have new evidences, which is less likely. It's up to the 2 countries to go on and see what they can do based on the ICJ rulings. Let me allow me please to point out to you that this current conflict didn't start 2-3 years ago. It began 10 years ago, the current round of conflict. And it depends on 3 factors on how we can get out from this conflict too. This, to me, crisis began on around 30th of May, 1 of June 2003, when a joint cabinet meeting between Thailand and Cambodia jointly declared that they will develop the temple area, the temple and the temple area. I think this is 2003, and 3 years after that, Cambodia, on 30th of January 2006, submitted a request to register the Preah Vihear temple to be the World Heritage, as you know. And of course, on the 7th of July 2009, the Heritage Committee, World Heritage Committee, on the 32nd meeting approved that. And of course, in the Thai politics during those years, a lot of shifts and changes. Joint communique was rejected by the Constitutional Court. PAD raised up, and against the decision of jointly developing that area. And the crash took place on July and October 2009, well before Abhisit government came to power. This is one of the misperceptions that Abhisit government came in with the support of the PAD and the military, began crashing with the Cambodian troops. Not true. Documented everywhere in the media and on record, crashes began well before Abhisit came to power. But of course, the crashes intensified in April 2010 and February 2011, leading Cambodia to submitting a complaint to the UNSC and seeking the temporary measures to the ICJ. The ICJ also approved the temporary measures and began accepting that case. So 10 years of complications on borders with many administrations and governments reacting differently. Lastly, I think, of course, with the ruling, the ICJ could put some of the issues to rest. I don't know what will happen. This decision, you know very well. Many of you read it. Paragraph 96, 97, 98 are very critical. But it will depend, actually, on number one, the first factor, how our government react to that decision. So far, as you know, there's a shift in the positions of the government slightly due to complications in Thai politics and due to reaction from Cambodia in the last few days. That position shifted from totally comply to not withdrawing the troops, and now to, let me study the issue, which is maybe the right thing. Let me study the issue and decide what to do. The first factor depends on how government, politicians, bureaucracy, and Cambodia react to the ICJ ruling. I think if they react positively, if they're sending positive signal, things could be better. By the way, the Thai people are very pragmatic, as you know. On one hand, they don't even know what Thai means to them. So that could have an impact on issues of sovereignty or territories. But on the other hand, they're very attached to the temple. So government need to handle that very, very carefully, very, very sensitively, very, very, cautious. With that, so far they have done not that bad, except they need to take more responsibility. They should not push the bureaucracy, to handle the issue alone. The government is elected from the people. They should come out, and this is the second issue. The second thing, this is what the opposition was saying in the parliament. They wanted the government to come out, saying clearly what position the government will adopt. As an opposition, they need to know, they need to tell the people, they need to inform the people that what are you going to do. So far, it's not that clear. And second, they need to be prepared on if they want to comply, if they want to follow, they need to be prepared to set up a mechanism to negotiate with transparency, with less conflict of interest, with less problems of trust, and perception that someone is gaining, someone is losing. So it's going to be very difficult. But the opposition is saying that, number one, you need to tell the government needs to decide on what they want to do. Second, they need to inform the public, so the public can make their mind. The public needs, according to the opposition, needs to be part of this very critical decision-making process. This is not like in 1962. The public was less involved. But now, I think the public, the PAD, civil society, general public, they want to know more. They want to be part of that very important decision of their lifetime. or after all, it is their country too. So I think the opposition, the Democrat, the PAD, the people on the streets, and people in general, young generations and others are now adopting wait and see, wanting the government to be more clear. I think Pheu Thai still have a chance to work more on this issue. So that's a second factor. It depends on how opposition and others react. But lastly, to me, it comes down to the same old issue. Although the government could handle effectively, although the opposition do their job in the parliament effectively, which is a big if for both, and although people are practical people, especially on the borders. If you ask people on the borders, of course, peace, trade, tourists are in their mind. Who wouldn't on the borders? But lastly, and most importantly, I think the key decisive issue is the military. You need to work closely with the military on this issue. Both Cambodia and Thailand. You need to ask Cambodia how to demilitarize their forces from many areas. And I believe in the areas that the ICJ already said that it's not it's not attached in the map, or at least it's not included in the court, thinking about Promontory, that is Pumakhur, and other surroundings, and many other areas also. I think on one hand, you can say that the past record of the military is not so bad. They are very practical. They're always willing to work with their neighboring countries. But on the other hand, some other people said, well, not so good. The military is very, very clear and very strong. Who wouldn't? None of these officers do not like to be on borders, handing down territories, to others. I don't think they can. So it depends on how you look at it. But whatever the military do is going to be very critical to the stability of the country, to the stability of the government, and it will be a proof that Pheu Thai again can handle the military quite effectively. Let's hope that this issue will not be decisive in the next few weeks when we are preparing for the new election. Let's hope that we can work with Cambodia more successfully, and this issue could be decided much later in the future. So I think I'll leave you with that. Thank you, Ajahn.